So I'm walking through the Ngāhere in the Woodhull Forest near Muriwai, and I want to make a video while I'm walking. It's getting on to around sunset, dusk, and very quiet in here, very busy over there. Back over towards the coast, a lot of people walking, so I wanted to come into the forest where it's a bit quieter. People usually walk their dog through here, but there's no one here at all at the moment. It's quite beautiful and serene where I am. And I want to talk about the UFO, the fake UFO narrative being portrayed by the intelligence agencies, and the myriad of people coming forward to expose that fake narrative, and the many perceptions around that from these people that are exposing this narrative. Because the majority of it, I mean, let's be honest, actually all of it, from any intelligence agency or government is bullshit. It's all fake. But there's a narrative behind it that people like dark journalist Gigi Young, Dr. Joseph P. Farrell, to name three that I can think of off the top of my head, have exposed to be a fake narrative. But there are other people that I just watched. Dan Waits from Astrology Report just did a video which I'll post with this video and a link about the nature of certain people that he follows that have exposed this narrative from the 19th century, especially from the Theosophical Society's perspective, around the nature of the ascended masters and those masters coming back to society in this time that we're in right now, and that narrative being potentially exploited by the powers that be, the intelligence agencies. And of course, we have to go beyond that. It would be their masters that are exploiting it, their non-human masters, whoever they are, right? So, all very interesting. But I want to put my spin on this because as someone I consider myself to be a contactee all my life, and I really have an affiliation with off-world and also inner world terrestrial, what would Mac Tonnies, who wrote the book Cryptoterrestrials, I have an affiliation and a connection with that level of existence as well. When I was practicing every day for many years shamanic dreaming, and I was practicing it with a medicine drum recording and going through the process of having my shamanic dreams. Often when I descended into the lower world, I'd go into the center of the earth, into what I considered to be, which I knew, actually not considered, I knew to be Akata, the civilization of Akata. And in that civilization, in the earth's, I consider it to be the earth's, not core, but large parts of the earth, inner crust, dimensional pockets, not so much. I consider those places to be actually within the earth itself. I consider those particular locations to be physical locations. It might be a dimensional pocket of frequency within that region of the earth. But what I saw when I'm down there is a central sun. A central sun within the earth, and that sun never sets. And that particular location is full of crypto-terrestrials. I've met many of them, and I've conversed with many of them in my dreams. One in particular who's like what would you call him? A dignitary, who's got a head like a let's let someone coming through in their bikes. Hey man. Mountain bike tracks. Hey bro. Who has a head like a squid octopus, kind of like head on a humanoid torso, humanoid form. It was very, very caring, very sweet, very endearing to me when I visit, very welcoming when I visit that part of the inner earth. And I consider him to be a crypto-terrestrial. I consider him to be a, not even call it a species, but a group of beings that live within the earth that are not human, but have lived on the earth in a hata and potentially on the surface at some point as well, when the frequency of the planet was very different to what it is today. And the crypto-terrestrials, what Mac Tonnies, who wrote the book Crypto-Terrestrials, my feeling is that he was correct, that there are other races that are more advanced than us, that have taken up occupation within the Earth's crust, within the Earth's oceans, within mountains, hollowed out mountains, volcanoes, extinct volcanoes, underground caverns that exist around us, that are more technologically advanced at some point in the past, actually communicated with the surface dwellers because it was safe for them to do so. And maybe some of these crypto-terrestrials still do communicate with humans, surface humans, and various levels of intelligence agencies, maybe the military, but they're not aliens. They're from here, they're from this planet, and they're not from some far distant solar system. Excuse me. I think it's really important to come to that conclusion when you know that to be a fact, and for me that is a fact. But I have had contact with other beings that are definitely off-world in my life, and I have had contact with beings that are not off-world, but they're not human. I think they're more of what's finally called elementals, elemental forces, and those elemental forces can come in many forms, often in plasma forms, plasma balls, plasma lights, orbs. When I started doing CE5 work in 2020, Stephen Gray's CE5 work, I had many experiences that were extraordinary, and saw lots of craft, which I now consider to be actually not craft at all. I consider them to be plasma forms of life, elementals, taking the shape that they did, as in orbs, as in craft, but plasma, in the form of plasma. I would not call them nuts and bolts, spaceships. I would consider them to be craft in regards to plasma craft. Need to cross this stream here, but I've got to find somewhere to cross. I keep myself dry when I cross the stream before it gets too dark. So there's so many things to consider when you get this fake alien invasion threat, which dark journalist Daniel Lynch has been exposing for a long time. And of course, Serge Monbiot, is that his name? The cat that broke the Project Bluebeam, a French-Canadian journalist that broke the Project Bluebeam narrative in the late 90s. That fake alien invasion, which kind of portends from Werner von Braun's admission to Carol Rosin in the early 1970s before he died of cancer, that the fourth card that would be played within the four narrative, the four movements towards a global control, world global control, the new world order, would be the fake alien invasion. He'd know very well because he was deeply in within that cult, and he wanted to expose it before on his deathbed. But for me, in my own personal experience around UFOs, I feel as though you cannot tick one box and say they're all this, they're all that, they're all this. Of course, there's this heavily Christian element in the United States saying that aliens are demons, UFOs are demons, which is absolute fucking bollocks. But on some level, there is a supernatural element to this as well. There's definitely a supernatural element to this. They could come in with elementals, and Dark Journalist once again does a really good expose on that, talking about J. Allen Hynek, who was one of the researchers from Project Blue Book for the Air Force, talking about the nature of how the end of his life, he said that he related to the experience of UFOs more on the lines of what Rudolf Steiner said, that they were elementals. And that was what he kind of portended towards, looking at the experience of UFOs, to say there's a pretty good chance that his experience, what he learned, was a lot of what he saw and perceived through his research, was that those UFOs were actually elemental forces or elemental beings manifesting themselves in our reality. At some point in prehistory, during a golden age, we would be able to perceive those beings, interact with them, and because of the nature of the frequency exchange and the frequency coherence and the higher levels of human existence, we would have been able to, like walking through a forest like this right now, I'd be able to see and connect with elemental beings, because they're at that high level of frequency. I'd be able to decode that frequency and see those beings that are already here all around me right now, but I can't perceive them. I can probably, if I tune into it, I can feel their presence. But as sure as I can't physically see them, but I can feel their presence around me. That's when I tune into the energy of that, I can totally feel them. But they're here, and they're not aliens. They are elemental beings that belong on this planet. They're part of the life cycle of this planet. So there's so many aspects of this experience that we have to talk about, that we can't just put it all and categorize it under one category. I think it's really the folly of this this fake alien invasion experience, where these UFO researchers are putting them onto either A, nuts and bolts craft, aliens flown by aliens from other parts of the galaxy, or the other galaxies potential. Yes, most definitely. I've had an experience which I will relate to very shortly, about my own experience with a being from Cassiopeia in 2020, which I think I've shared before, but I'll share it again. But I would suggest the majority of my experience anyway, majority of these beings that are, or experiences or craft that are here, that look and could potentially be from here, have been and are either flown by humans that have got advanced technology that they've kept from the public, military, black budget, that are flown by men and women like me, like you watching this video, or it could be, as Dark Journalist says, could be ancient civilizations that have existed here on the planet for a very, very long time. And as Edgar Casey once famously said in one of his readings about what the Atlantean craft looked like, he said that what Ezekiel saw was an Atlantean craft. And as Dark Journalist points out as well in his videos, that was some 6,000 years after Atlantis had sunk. So somebody had the technology and was still using it 6,000 years after Atlantis had sunk. So there's breakaway civilizations, is what Richard Dolan called them. Breakaway civilizations that existed and do exist today. They could be, like I said before at the beginning of this video, living within the oceans, living within our solar system, our moons in our solar system, living in hollowed out mountains, living in lakes, bottom of lakes, or in caves and lakes and caverns and lakes, or living in the inner earth that are from thousands of years ago. And these beings might have changed in their appearance to us today because of the nature of how much that the frequencies drop from the golden age, or from an age when they were around. They might have a very different appearance to us. They might have a skill technology. These are slippery jacks, can you see those? Oops, hang on. Slippery jack mushrooms. These guys, very, very nutritious. Pretty bland to taste, but very nutritious anyway. I'm going off track there. These beings could have changed their appearance. That is a psilocybin mushroom. Hello. Anyway, thank you very much. Those beings could have changed their appearances through the use of technology to something else that we don't comprehend until we see them, and they diffuse their form, their real form, by putting an overlay over them technologically. And it gives them an appearance like countenance that could be reptilian, could be white, tall whites, could be blonde haired, blue eyed. It could be a number of forms, but their true form is hidden from us because with their technology, they are presenting themselves to us in a form that is very different to the one that we are seeing, due to the nature of how far advanced they are in their technology. And of course, in our modern technology today, there's a good chance that there are, in the private anyway, technologies that we don't know that allow a projection and the illusion of reptilian forms, or Pleiadian forms, or greys, or any other form that we might consider to be aliens, but they're only just humans projecting those forms out with the use of technology to create this narrative and this push for this narrative. So even if you follow the work of Terence McKenna in the book True Hallucinations, he says these psilocybin mushrooms, the psilocybin mushrooms, they're aliens, and that their spores travel through the vacuum of space and made it onto our planet here, and these are actually alien life forms. So, you know, this could be an alien here in my finger right now. This could be an alien life form from another part of the galaxy, or from further afield. It's come down through space and through our atmosphere. Its spores finding their way into the earth, and through the mycelium network communicating with the forests. And this is the fruiting body of an alien species in my hand right now. So there's contact for you. There's extraterrestrial contact. So, you know, all these factors have to be taken into account when it comes to this whole idea of aliens, extraterrestrials, cryptoterrestrials, and other non-human forces are on this planet. So for me, I'll tell you my story about what happened to me in 2020. And this has happened to me in Wellington and Berrenport, but I was on Wrights Hill and Korori. I took a small dose of Wiriroa, New Zealand native mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, little blue and white truffles, which I picked on Wrights Hill around that time. One Friday night in 2020, I took some, and just a small dose. I used to go up to Wrights Hill and Korori and do CE5 work up there. And when I was doing my CE5 work, where I was pushing my consciousness from my heart vortex out into deep space, I saw a blue plasma orb. right out in deep space. And that orb, I brought that orb back with me, back to where I was on Wrights Hill in Karori. And I vectored back, I call it vectoring. You vector back, and but due to like where you vector back through is just, for me, I was like vectoring back through the solar system. So this orb could follow me back to where I was, if it chose to. And what happened was I vectored back to where I was on Wrights Hill, vectored back onto the very spot where I was, and the orb came back into the sky above my head, and it flashed at me a message, and the message got downloaded into my body, into my consciousness, like a telepathic message. That message was, go home and go to bed. It's like 9:30 at night. I was cracking up laughing. I thought ET's just told me to go home and go to bed. So I laughed myself. I laughed the whole way back to my location, back to where I live. I laughed the whole way back. It's in hysterics, just driving back to Berhampore. And as I was driving back, I thought, this is very, very bizarre. I got back home, went to bed, crawled into bed about 9:30, quarter to 10 at night. Crawled into bed. When I got into bed, I had this experience where I could feel this energy, and it was so heavy in regards to its weight. It was pushing down on my duvet, and it moved across my duvet, over my body, like a snake was devouring me, and like, you know, a huge constrictor was like swallowing my body, but energetically it was moving across my body, like it was crawling over me and immersing itself around me, like it was. I put this, like a field of energy was moving across my body, but also beneath my body as I was lying in the bed. And as it did this, as it moved across my body, it began to read my etheric field. It read my photon, my bio field, and it registered that I had an attraction to a woman at the time, and it obviously knew, through reading my biofield, that the best way for it to actually have a interaction with me in regards to getting all the necessary information it needed was to have a sexual connection. And that means like a full immersive sexual intercourse experience where the two fields were meshed in that way through the experience of a sexual connection. Whereas the full complete, and it knew that was the most, this being, it knew that it was the most powerful way to have a interaction with me, but also to have a full immersion in the way that would be able to read my biofield, but read my DNA, read my ancestral DNA, comprehend my existence in this form and 3D and everything that I've actually experienced in my body. That's the way I look at it, a full comprehensive download, and through the interactive experience of sexual connection. And I'm not sure whether this experience happened on a frequency band. I consider it like this in regards to an analogy: water and oil. And if the water is my conscious state of frequency, the oil on top is just a sliver of a frequency above where I am in my awareness, almost like an etheric perception. Not quite astral, not quite conscious, but more etheric, more in that energy frame of etheric. And in that space, it took on the form of this woman that I had an attraction to. I think I made a video about this a long time ago. And in that space, I had full connection to the experience I was having in this state, in this sexual connection. I had full experience, and I had a full immersion of this connection with this woman who I'd had this deep affection for. And I proceeded to have incredible tantric, multi-orgasmic sexual intercourse at that level of existence, not in the physical body as such, but in this level that was slightly higher than my physical body. I could still feel everything. Energetic, I could still feel everything. And this being, during the sexual experience I had with this being, it allowed me to also integrate with it and to be able to have the full downloads of where it came from, what it looked like and what its planet looked like and what constellation it had come from, because it came from a constellation that was Cassiopeia. And the planet itself, I got a pretty good visual on the planet itself, what it looked like. The beings, what they look like as well. But it was the consciousness of this being this being had projected its consciousness like a remote viewing process, but a much stronger connection, a much stronger ability to do this, a much more powerful ability to actually project. It's not only its consciousness, but its form in this way that allowed it to have this experience with me in my body. And I remember it going on for hours, like literally for, it must be 7 or 8 hours of having these incredible multiple orgasmic experiences with this being. And when it finished, it departed about 5 in the morning. I went to sleep for about an hour or two and woke up completely bedazzled and felt really rejuvenated, and also very the process was very exhilarating, put it that way. It was a very exhilarating process for me. It was just, I was just rejuvenated and exhilarated and full of energy. And the next night when I was straight, went back to bed again, the being came back for round 2. And I was like, no, I got a headache. No, this has got to stop. And as soon as I said no, it pulled off my body. It slid back off my body, and then it vanished and it never came back. And for me, that was, without a doubt, that for me was like, it was a recognition that that was a level of being, from a being that projected its consciousness across the vast. There's no vast, it's all illusion, but its consciousness came across the frequency from where it came from into my frequency, and attuned to my frequency through this process, and read my auric field, read my biofield to distinguish what the experience was like having a life in a body like mine, in this realm, in this energy, in this frequency band. And that kind of thing you have to take into account as well. It's like it goes well beyond any kind of physical, quotation marks, extraterrestrial experience. It wasn't an abduction experience. It was actually a consensual, energetic exchange. So you can't, for me, in my experience with this whole alien phenomenon, fake alien invasion, fake alien revelation stuff, demons, angels, physical nuts and bolts, craft, elementals, all of this have to be taken into account, and there's so much more to it than that. The Ascended Master stuff is, with the Madame Blavatsky's, the Theosophical Society, that stuff in regards to the Masters coming back. I don't really feel as though that has any precedent in this narrative disclosure, but maybe it can be utilized in regards to creating an alien god, which is something to do with AI. All of this has to be taken into account. You can't just pigeonhole this experience into one thing like these government agencies are doing across the world now, because Japan apparently is releasing alien files as well. I think that if you go through the historical narrative of our ancient civilizations, Vedas, Chinese, worldwide cultures, once again, you can't come from a place of saying that it's all nuts and bolts aliens, because it could be elementals, it could be supernatural, it could be interdimensional, it could be a number of aspects that play into this experience, into this narrative that we have to look at, and this multipolar perception of how our reality, how our interaction with these beings has been. Because there are, to me, crypto-terrestrials, interdimensionals, elementals, physical, non-human beings that live on the planet, within the planet, and live within the solar system, live outside the solar system, that travel here, not necessarily nuts and bolts craft, but travel here through other means as well. So there's so many aspects to this narrative we have to take into account, and don't fall for the angels and demons narrative being portrayed by the Christians and the US government, or the physical nuts and bolts, aliens, alien threat coming from the CIA. Yeah, a lot of that's just bollocks. It's all just pushing for that narrative for the fake alien invasion, and then therefore more control over the human populace. The real truth is it's far more complex and far more, in my experience, far more complex and far more wondrous. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te wa. I'll see you again soon.